to tell you about Charles Darwin, a brilliant naturalist who changed the way people thought about life on Earth, and his adventures on the ship HMS Beagle and in the Galapagos.
He was able to do this because he was always passionate about science and nature. But first, Charles Darwin would like to say a few things about himself.
Hello, I'm Charles Darwin. I was born on February 12, 1807. And I was the fifth and youngest child in my family. I lived in Shrewsbury in England for a long time. I always loved nature and I hated school. Nothing could have been worse for the development of my mind. The school as a means of education to me was simply a blank. All that Latin and Greek. I just wanted to collect things like stones of beetles.
Okay, Charles, we don't want them hating school.
Oh, sorry. Well, anyway, stay in school, kids. We're about to tell you some theories and places that will blow your minds.
Ever since Charles was young, he was always passionate about nature and bugs.
Charles and his older brother Erasmus even had a chemistry lab in their garden shed, which led him to getting nicknamed Gas at school.
He went to a few different places and colleges before he figured out that he wanted to be a naturalist. At one time, he wanted to be a doctor, but he couldn't stand the sight of blood.
When I was 22 in 1831, I was invited on a 5-year voyage around the world on the HMS Beagle. It sounded like the chance of a lifetime, but I almost didn't get the job because the captain didn't like the shape of my nose.
The captain was an ardent disciple of a man called Lavater and was convinced that he could judge a man's character by the outline of his features.
He doubted whether anyone with my nose could possess sufficient energy and determination for the voyage, but I think he was afterwards well satisfied that my nose had spoken falsely.
The Beagle was going to cross the Atlantic Ocean to South America, the Galapagos, New Zealand, Australia, and to South Africa. The trip would take 5 years.
When Darwin first saw the ship, he was surprised at how small it was.
Oh look, there I am right now. And there's the ship, the HMS Beagle.
Hello, Captain Fitzroy. How are you today?
Splendid, Darwin. Are you ready to sail?
Yes, I am. The ship is a bit smaller than I thought it was going to be.
It will do. Come aboard and let's be on our way. Off to adventure we go.
I don't mean to sound weird, but by any chance you have a bucket? I'll build some then.
Oh, here. You must be sick. I'm sorry to say that, but you will have to stay in your hammock until you get better. Do you have a good book to read?
I had a great book, like Charles Lyell, and it was about his theory that the earth was millions of I had a great book. It was by Charles Lyell, and it was about his theory that the earth was millions of years old and that it changed very slowly.
Could this be the theory of gradualism?
Yes, it was about gradualism. Plus an earthquake in Valparaiso had proved to me that the earth is always changing. Unfortunately, once on the Beagle, I was immediately seasick and stayed that way during much of the voyage. That did give me a lot of time in my hammock, rereading travel books and wondering whether I had made the right decision to go on the trip.
After many adventures and 4 years of sailing, in September 1835, the Beagle docked at the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador.
Here we are in the Galapagos. In a few weeks we'll be off to Tahiti. So make the most of your time here, Darwin. Go ashore.
I started off on the voyage, not ambitious to make a groundbreaking scientific discovery, but there I am so many years ago. My first impressions of the place were not good.
How And the heat. I feel like I'm standing on a stove. There are only a few wretched weeds to collect. And oh no! The volcano! The ground is hard and cracked, as if it had solidified yesterday.
However, I soon realized that these islands were worthy of study, although I was not impressed by the iguanas at first.
Hey, that's mine!
Disgusting tiny lizards. What an awful appearance they have.
I did observe them a lot. I watched one until half its body was buried. I then whooped up and pulled it by the tail. At this I was greatly astonished, and soon shuffled up to see what was the matter, and then stared me in the and then looked up to me as if to say,
What's made you put my tail
Guys, it's not at all afraid of me. How extraordinary. Now what is that coming?
As I was walking along, I met a large tortoise. It must have weighed at least 200 pounds. As I approached, it gave a deep hiss and drew its head in. I would later spend some of my time following the tortoises I met, observing and timing them. I even rode on one.
Time for a ride. This tortoise certainly is slow.
Yes, Darwin was an inquisitive man, curious about all nature and science. When he saw strange animals, he often wondered what they would taste like, and sometimes he actually ate them.
You heard correctly, Darwin did try both iguana and tortoise. Parrots and whalers had eaten tortoises for many years before Darwin even arrived in the Galapagos. This is one reason so few were left in later years. In fact, the Beagle even loaded up tortoises to eat back on the way back to England and threw the shells overboard.
Darwin also missed the clue given to him by the governor of the Galapagos. Mr. Lawson told Darwin that he could tell which island a tortoise was from just by looking at the shape and pattern of its shell.
I have only seen one kind of tortoise, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Luckily, I remembered this when I began to consider my theory of evolution. It seems that there are two main shell types. Saddleback tortoises live on dry islands with little grass, with many tall plants. This shell type allows the tortoise's long neck to extend upward to reach the food. Tortoises with dome-shaped shells live on wetter islands where plants grow low to the ground. This shell shape only allows the animal's shorter neck to extend forward, fine for grabbing a bite of grass. It seems that each island had conditions that helped the resident tortoise develop a shell type that helped increase the chances for it to eat and thus survive there.
Darwin also initially missed the evolutionary clues hidden in the finches, finding them very hard to tell apart. In fact, he didn't even know that they were finches at all. The different species flocked together when eating and drinking. Darwin was more interested in how tame they were. He could even prod them with a stick, and many would still sit still.
How odd these birds are. They don't even fly away.
Although he collected many finches, unlike his usual thoroughness, he didn't label them by island. Fortunately for his later studies, Fitzroy and Sims Covington were keeping more meticulous records.
The mockingbirds caught my eye. I noticed that some of these were different on different islands, but also all similar to birds on the mainland. I collected many specimens, labeling them separately. It was only many years later that I put two and two together. I never dreamed that islands about 50 or 60 miles apart, and most of them in sight of each other, formed of precisely the same rocks, placed under a similar climate, rising to a nearly equal height, would have different species.
Oh, look, in present-day Galapagos, some kids are on a field trip. Oh, welcome to the Galapagos Islands! Oh, look, the volcano's erupting! How interesting! Woo! This is here in the Galapagos that Charles Darwin made one of his most famous discoveries. Do you know what that is?
Global warming?
No, it wasn't, but he did discover the theory of evolution. Who can tell me what it
Charles
is?
Darwin saw mockingbirds from island to island and thought that maybe they were related. He looked at their beaks and they were all different shapes. He later found that the finches from different islands had different beaks.
Oh, well, and then he thought.
And then he thought that maybe the finches had evolved.
Oh, and what is evolution?
Global warming?
No, Bobby, it's not global warming.
Evolution is when an animal changes over the years to suit where it lives.
Like whales, their blowholes were in their noses and over years
They evolved and now their blowholes are in their backs.
That's right, the whales evolved. But do animals evolve just because they feel like it?
No, they evolve because it helps them survive.
like what Charles Darwin saw about the finches. Each species of finch had a different shaped beak, and each species ate something different. Like pancakes?
No, they did eat insects and seeds.
Look, a big turtle.
No, that's a tortoise. And how did the tortoises evolve? That's a tortoise, Tommy, not a turtle.
There's different species of tortoise in every island, and those species were divided into two parts. There's tortoises with a saddle-shaped shell, and the tortoises with a
Where are we here? Oh, there we go.
Tortoises with shadow-shaped shells have longer necks so they can reach leaves from trees.
Okay.
Whereas the tortoises with a dome-shaped shell eat food closer to the ground.
And that's how they survive. Now, okay, so now we're going to visit the Charles Darwin Foundation and learn even more about these amazing islands. Here comes the guide. Hold this while I take a photo. Gotta get a photo of the guide. Okay, guide. Woo!
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Charles Darwin Foundation, an international non-profit organization dedicated to the conservation of the Galapagos Islands.
What does that mean?
It means that all the people that work here have the goal of researching the best way to save the island's unique environment and then advising and helping the government of Ecuador to carry out programs to do so, science and conservation working together.
That sounds very exciting.
Can you tell us about our project? Sure. Let me tell you about